Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. Happy Friday to each and every one of you. You know, let me ask you a couple questions. What do you know about women and God? Are you one of those people who's heard that God really just hates his daughters? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this live. And I want to start by telling you a story. I have a biblical coaching program that I run, and it's primarily for men. And today I happen to have a couple of men who came in and were under the misconception that women were really not appreciated by God and that they were people and objects that God had created specifically for men. Now I want to make sure something's very clear. The fact of the matter is that God did in fact create women with men in mind because it was from our men that we came. But here's the deal, because of all these misconceptions that are going on in the world, people don't understand certain things. And so today, what I want to do is I want to go over some of the passages in the Bible that actually talk about women and make sure you understand them. But before we begin, there's a couple of things I want to make sure you are abundantly aware of. Number one, there is no such thing as a female angel. Let's look at the names of the angels, shall we? Michael, not female. Gabriel, not female. Uriel, not female. Raphael, not female. Azrael, not female. The names go on and on and on and on, and none are female. This whole concept of females as angels, I'm almost certain, is a Roman Catholic invention, but we're not going to talk about any specific religion. What we are going to talk about is the error in thinking that angels are women. What I want you to understand is this: angels are not like you and I. We as humans cannot stand before an angel, go and fight them, and ever win, because with the tip of their itty bitty little pinky, of our itty bitty little pinky, that is the exact amount of strength they would need to knock us clear to Saturn if they ever chose to. If God said, just smack them, you would be on Saturn, you would be suffocating to death. That's how powerful one angel is. They are so gigantic that an angel can stand with 1 foot on land and 1 foot in the ocean and still tower above the earth. If we don't understand that, then the history that we are about to review will be very, very confusing to you. So, with that being said, let's get started. What I want you to do is I want you to grab your Bibles and I want you to go to Genesis 19. And we're going to talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. That's where we're going to start. Are you ready? We're going to come out of the New Living Translation. So you may have to adjust the reading because I want it to be very plain English for you as we go through this. You ready? Let's get started. That evening, the two angels came to the entrance of the city of Sodom. Lot was sitting there. And when he saw them, he stood up to meet them. So I want you to understand right there in the first verse, the first half of the verse, that Lot realized what and who he was looking at. He wasn't confused. He believed and knew that they were angels. Then he welcomed them and bowed with his face to the ground. That's what confirms that he knew they were angels. My lords, he said, come to my home to wash your feet and be my guests for the night. You may then get up early in the morning and be on your way again. Oh, no, they replied. We'll just spend the night out here in the city square. Now remember, these angels came to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. They already knew what the plan was, and God had already instructed them accordingly. But Lot insisted. This is verse 3. So at the last, they went home with him. Lot prepared a feast for them, complete with fresh bread made without yeast, and they ate. But before they retired for the night, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. They shouted to Lot, "Where are the men who came to spend the night with you? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them." They asked for them by their gender. Who are the men? They already knew. So, in this particular one, we're going to keep some things pretty straightforward. You ready? Let me ask you a couple questions. Number one, none of the people who showed up at Lot's house were female. Who were they according to the text? The text says, all the men of Sodom, young and old, came from all over the city and surrounded the house. What that is telling you is that these were men who were completely and solely interested in homosexual relations. That's it. They were not interested in heterosexual relations. That's not what they came for. And I need you to remember that, because when we get to the next part of this, it's going to appear like, oh my God, look what these guys, look what Lot did. How disrespectful. And I'm going to give you that foreshadow because I want you to understand where we're going with this. Let's move on. So Lot stepped outside to talk to them, shutting the door behind him. Very important. "Please, my brothers," he begged, "don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have two virgin daughters. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do with them as you wish. But please leave these men alone, for they are my guests and under my protection." Now, before you go getting up in arms saying, "He offered up his daughters, he da 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 da," here's the thing. How many gay men do you know are interested in heterosexual relations? They're called homosexual because they're interested in one gender, and it ain't female, it's male. The moment he offered the daughters, there was no possibility that those daughters were ever in trouble. Number one, there were angels there who could have killed this whole group in a matter of seconds. Seconds. What Lot did on the surface appears as though he was disrespecting the daughters, but they were never ever in jeopardy of being hurt. Not one time. What happened there, what truly happened there, is that God gave these men, before he judged the town, the option to veer onto the path that he laid before us. Listen, we don't have to like it. This book was written before anyone on this earth was ever born. It was created in order to sustain this society for one man and one woman to come together. Anything outside of the combination of one male and one female is not going to have the ability to produce children. So when you watch congressional hearings and things like that, and they say, can men have babies? The answer is no. I don't care how you try to sum it up. The answer is no. A trans man can only have a baby if that trans man has still got female parts. That's not a trans man. That's a woman. So then when they come back and they say, well, you're being transphobic, no, I'm not being transphobic. I'm being realistic. You don't get to live in a world of delusion, especially not if you watch and read and serve the Lord. Delusion is delusion. And because they love not the truth, God sends them a very strong delusion. So you get to choose. Are you going to walk in that path, or Are you going to stand your ground? I want to take a moment to take a sidestep and talk about Hurricane Carter. And here's why. Just stay with me for a moment. Hurricane Carter was an innocent man who was incarcerated and spent 20 years of his life in prison. He refused to put on their prison uniform. And he would not put on their prison uniform because he had done nothing wrong. So to break him, they put him in solitary for an indeterminate amount of time. And still they could not break him. Finally, they released him, and a guard showed him his due respect. Because he was innocent, he always wore whatever suit he wanted to wear. He did not disrespect the prison, he did not disrespect the prisoners, but he stood his ground. Ladies and gentlemen, at what point do we begin to stand our ground and to understand that what is truth is foundational? It is not fluid and it does not change. You can't be transphobic. It's an arbitrary concept. The only gender that can produce a child in combination is one male to one female. I don't care how many different ways you try to spin it. I don't care if they dress up in costumes and look like vampires and werewolves. It still has to be one man and one woman. Those are facts. They are biological, scientific facts, and there is no altering them. Oh, I can skew data and make it lie, but that doesn't make it the truth. And when you have the truth, you don't have to shout it, yell it, scream it. The truth is always going to stand on its own. Lot did not put his daughters up with the expectation that he was going to hurt his daughters. He was very clear where the minds of those men were, and they were not on women, or they would not have been standing at his door. Does that make sense? So, the men came back. We're going to go to Genesis 19 and 9. Stand back, they shouted. This fellow came to town as an outsider, and now he's acting like our judge. We'll treat you far worse than those other men. And they lunged toward Lot to break down the door, but the two angels reached out, pulled Lot into the house, and bolted the doors. Then they blinded all the men, young and old, who were at the door of the house, so they gave up trying to get inside. Meanwhile, the angels questioned Lot. Do you have any other relatives here in the city? They asked. Get them out of this place. Your sons in law, sons, daughters, or anyone else, for we are about to destroy this city completely. The outcry against this place is so great, it has reached the Lord, and he has sent us to destroy it. Well, you want to sit back and think that God is bad. He's mean, he's evil, he's angry. He's none of these things. The reality is that sin is sin. And when people have chosen to not walk with God, they've chosen sin. So let me ask you this. Do you have those same feelings when God protects you or someone you love from harm entering their place? How many times have you gone to a shopping mall and hoped, some of you prayed, that you would be able to go in that shopping mall and come out without there being a mass shooting? You see, things become different in our outlook when we're in trouble and we're looking for God to be there to protect us. And that's the thing I want you to always remember. God is with us and he loves us. At what point do we accept that he is who he is and that he's watching and he's listening? And just because his timetable is a little bit different than ours doesn't mean that he's not here. Ladies, God has always loved you. He's always made provision for you. And at no point in time does he willingly put you in harm's way. You have to choose. Let's finish up Lot, and then I want to share a couple of other things with you. So Lot rushed to his daughter's fiancés. Quick, get out of the city. The Lord is about to destroy it. But the young men thought he was only joking. At dawn the next morning, the angels became insistent. Hurry, they said to Lot. Take your wife and your two daughters who are here. Get out right now, or you will be swept away in the destruction of the city. Those same daughters that people always talk about, Lot was willing to give up, they named specifically to get them out of here. Those girls were never in harm's way. That's why Lot closed the door so that they couldn't hear what was going on, so that his daughters didn't have to feel that their father didn't value them. Ladies, when the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, Eve did eat the fruit first. That's a fact. You can't change that. But I want you to remember something. Nothing happened when we ate the fruit. The fact of the matter is that God did create men to be our covering, but he did not create us to be under their feet. He created us to be side by side so that we could walk together, so that we could both enjoy the privilege and the freedoms that were given. Ladies, your job is always to multiply the vision of the husband that you have. And I know that there are so many men who get lost and they don't understand. But your job is to point them in the direction where they can start to become free, where they can start to understand what it is that God is truly saying. Listen, this world confuses everybody. It is filled with mess and with chaos, and it's very confusing. But as women, there's something I want you to understand. We are powerhouses, and we are powerhouses because of our Father. So let me show you another thing. Let's go to Numbers, shall we? And we're going to go to Numbers 27. And I want to make sure that you always remember this because these daughters had a father and their father passed away. And because he had no sons, they were going to take away the inheritance of his daughters. And the daughters said, absolutely not. And so here we go. Starting with verse 2. These daughters stood before Moses, Eleazar the priest, and the tribal leaders, and the entire community at the entrance of the tabernacle. Our father died in the wilderness, they said. He was not among Korah's followers who rebelled against the Lord. He died because of his own sin. But he had no sons. Why should the name of our father disappear from his clan just because he had no son? Give us the property along with the rest of our relatives. So Moses brought their case before the Lord. And the Lord, that is your Father in heaven, replied to Moses, the claim of the daughters is legitimate. You must give them a grant of land along with their father's relatives. Assign them the property that would have been given to their father. Ladies and gentlemen, women have always been treasured by the Father. You are not something for people to walk on. You are not something that is to be beaten. You are not something that is to be disrespected. You are not something that is to be walked over. Your Father has always loved you, and he's always made provision for you. And the reality is that men and women were always supposed to be teams. So what's happened? Well, that's an easy answer. You see, one of the best ways to attack God is to take his system and twist and contort it. And so I want you to go back into the history, long into history, And I want you to think of societies like ancient Greece and Rome, even ancient Egypt, some of the Aztec spaces and areas where women were highly disrespected, even in some of the religions of today where women are disrespected. What better way to cause division, to kill men and to kill women, than to give a misunderstanding that God chooses one over the other? God didn't choose one over the other. He made men responsible. So at the end of the day, when they do these atrocious things to some women, well, they pay for that. But ladies, you don't get to disrespect men because they are misinformed. And yes, for some of you, it is greater than misinformation. But the reality is that in the eyes of God, it is still misinformation. So be careful how harshly you choose to judge. This misunderstanding, this miscommunication, this bastardization of the Bible took place long before these men were born. It is up to us to take our sons and our brothers and to steer them in God's way. Because at the end of the day, he genuinely loves his females. He tells men in his word how they dealt treacherously with their wives. He tells them how they are to love them. We can find that in 2 Peter 3 and 8. And husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and give your life for them. When they don't follow, we don't hold responsibility for the bad choices that they make, but we do hold responsibility for the bad choices that we choose to make. If you walk around and you say God doesn't love me because I'm a woman, then you are as misguided and delusional as the men you criticize. He did not create us to be sex toys or prostitutes or some person's doormat. There is a character that we should naturally walk with, a way that we should carry ourselves, a level that we should always hold our head high because we are the jewel in their crown. And if you find yourself aligned with a man who does not see you as the jewel in his crown, then that's not the man for you. And you have to ask yourself, why am I here? Because now we're dealing with a spirit that you've got to choose to get rid of. And that's that spirit of fear. Analyze your thoughts because God can't show, I mean, we can go through probably 200 other verses in here where God will tell you, I love my daughters. Proverbs 31 is a love letter to the type of woman we strive to be. He spelled it out for us. He spelled out what kind of husband to look for. And husbands, he spelled out what kind of wife you want to look for. She's got to be diligent, determined, love her family, willing to protect her family, willing to make sure her family is warm. Each one of us plays a vital role in the relationship. No one person is responsible for all. So let's talk about the biggest weakness with men. It's always money. I made this money. We have heard men say that for years. But here's what those men don't catch. Here's what they miss. Without her, all you are is a single man who is out there amassing a fortune so you can die and leave it where? To a cat? Maybe a dog. You got a sheep you want to leave it to? Take your pick. You have a family because your family carries on your legacy. So, how much money you do or don't make, well, that only goes so far because without her, you don't have the family. And then you have nothing to leave it to. You have no one to take care of. You have no one to leave your legacy to. What's a legacy with no one to pass it on to? It's empty and it's broken. You want your wives to always respect you? Quit telling everybody you pay for everything. And some of you, gentlemen, you are so empty that all you have is what you think you make. And you too deal with a spirit that you have to choose to tackle. And that spirit is fear. Because, gentlemen, you are kings. You are stronger than this. And you are made with more stuff than this. Your heart is a heart of a lion. You are a ferocious leader and a powerful father, husband, brother, uncle. But you have to get out of you and begin to remind your women of why they were so valuable to you, why they mean so much to you. Because if you can't logically convey that in a way that reaches them, then you have to really look at who you've been, that's no longer there for you. So, I've given you God's word for today. I hope all of you enjoyed it. I look forward to the next live, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Enjoy your weekend.